And welcome back. So as you can see, I have made myself my 3 different lists. Well, technically they're not all lists. These are actually a mix of lists and tuples. You can tell because parentheses, parentheses, square bracket. And it ends with parentheses, parentheses, square bracket. These are not all lists. These are not all tuples. These are a mix of both lists and tuples. But in this particular situation, you're not going to need to worry about that. We're going to use them interchangeably. So, basically, I have made my list of words. Now, in this example, I have used the Greek gods, and I've also used the Roman gods, which are the exact same thing, just with different names. So Jupiter becomes Zeus, Pluto becomes Hades, Hercules is Heracles, so on and so forth. You'll also notice I have a word bank for all my letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, so on and so forth. So I've got 3 different lists here. I've got 3 containers that hold multiple objects. Let me make that a bit truer of a statement. You'll also notice that everything is in uppercase. So, for those that remember from last week, you made the word scramble game. And the word scramble game had this nice little problem where even if you typed in the correct answer, like say you had A, but instead you used a lowercase a, even if you had the A in the right spot, it wouldn't have counted it because it wasn't the proper syntax. A lowercase a and a capital A represent 2 different things because they're 2 different characters. If you notice, when I highlight this lowercase a, nothing is showing up. But if I highlight this uppercase A, right here in my letter bank, this A also highlighted itself. It recognizes that this is the same as this. But if I highlight this one, that highlight goes away. It's gone. So, to avoid that problem, we're going to make sure that everything can be inputted directly into uppercase. So, I guess you could just give a print statement and tell the player, hey, please input only in uppercase for this to work. But I don't really like doing that. We want to make sure that it prints in uppercase even if the player screws up. Because if they screw up, they're getting marked wrong, and that mark wrong might make them lose the game. So, how are we going to do that? Well, first off, let's just make this an input here. So I'm just going to name this guess. You don't have to name it guess, but guess is input, and what's my, I'll say pick a letter. And then I'll give them that command. And then, of course, obviously, I'll print, guess. So if I were to, because I spelt input incorrectly. Execute. I am a typo machine today. So if I pick a letter, and I'll pick the letter E, and it prints out E just as expected. I typed a lowercase, it printed a lowercase. But, as you can see, there's no lowercase e in this right here. It's an uppercase E. So I can change my letter to an uppercase by simply going guess equals guess dot upper, and then closing my little parentheses. So now if I pick the letter E again, it printed out a capital E. And I can do the same thing again. So if I were to, I can now do guess equals guess dot lower. Execute. And now if I do a capital E, it changed my capital E to a capital E, and then the very next line it changed it to a lowercase, and it made it lowercase. So even though I typed in uppercase, it changed to lowercase because that was the last command I had before printing. So we're not going to use the guess.lower, we're going to keep it guess.upper here so that everything is in uppercase the entire time. No matter what they type, it's going to make sure that it's something from this list. So we're going to have to do that, and we'll move that down here a bit because we're going to wind up having to use it a little bit later. Not now, but we'll use it later. So that's guess.upper versus guess.lower. And I think I'll stop it right here, and I'll continue on with some of the logic afterwards in the next video.